Now, delegates at the ANC's Gauteng elective conference are selecting their preferred candidates for official positions in the party in the province. The position of chairperson is being contested between MECs Panyaza, Lesufi and Lebogang Maile. Our reporters Ziyanda, Ngcobo and Mbali Thethani are there. Let me say good afternoon to you both. Ziyanda, starting with you, we know that it's not the first time that Lebogang Maile and Panyaza Lesufi are going head to head. Some have said, in fact, that this is a process too close to call.
Too close to call, and this is exactly why then there's a sense of relief in the air, I would say, as voting is getting underway. I'm going to step out of shot so that my colleague and I, Kevin, can show you what's currently happening. Voting did actually begin about an hour or so ago, and each region is being called and delegates are making their way into the venue and exiting in another place. So this is what's currently taking place. It looks like it's been moving at quite a speedily pace as well, Limpo. So this also gives us an indication of how close we are then to getting the announcement of those results. You'll recall then, you know, for the positions that are being vied for, you've already said it's Lebogang Maile and Panyaza Lesufi. For the deputy chair position, it's Mzee Kumalo and Nomantu Ralehoko. For the position of provincial secretary, which will be very interesting, is that there are three candidates there. There's TK Ngeza from Ekurhuleni that's running. There's also the names literally just slipped out of my mind. But there are three candidates vying for that particular position. And why this then becomes significant is because when you have three candidates vying for a position, it means that it also cuts the number down in terms of the number of votes that you need then to be able to reach the threshold or to be able to emerge in that particular position. So it's a very interesting race, because you'll know that the chairperson and the provincial secretary would work very closely together. So there is a sense that and hope from both sides, that of the Maile slate and that of the Panyaza Lesufi slate, that at least then, if they can get their preferred candidates in the position of chairman and that of provincial secretary, it would make things much easier than having to manage certain dynamics, especially when it comes to the vision of the province.
Well, Ziyanda, Ngcobo, let's leave it there for now and turn to Mbali. We know, Mbali, the issue of credentials was a stumbling block ahead of this voting process now underway. We also heard the ANC spokesperson, Pule Mabe, saying that conferences should in fact now run for 3 days.
You're certainly right, Mpo. And of course, I must tell you that as voting gets underway here in Benoni at the Lakes Hotel, it is indeed a hive of activity outside the main plenary halls of this conference. And of course, we know that, you know, the likes of Johannesburg have already started to then go ahead to cast their ballots to indeed choose that top 5 and those top officials in the province of Gauteng. And of course, Ziyanda's quite right when she points out the issues around when we look at the two slates vying for the top officials in this province. We do know that we have the slate of Panyaza Lesufi and we also have Lebogang Maile slate. But at the same time, Paul, quite central and quite important is the issue around the provincial secretary. And as Ziyanda has pointed out, we do indeed have the likes of Thulani Kunene, who's vying for that position, TK Tembinkosi and Liza also vying for that position, as well as Jacob Kawe. But just to give us a bit of more insight, we indeed have the regional chairperson of Sedibeng. His name is Thulani Kunene, who is also a provincial secretary hopeful, as his name is one of those people who is on the ballot paper. Quite important to point out that when it comes to the provincial chair, we see 3 names. One would say that it was quite difficult for your slate to actually decide as who would then take that nomination for provincial secretary.
Well, branches and regions made up that decision, and they felt that I should stand for provincial secretary, and we were happy to accept that responsibility.
When it comes to the kind of leadership you will try and iron out in this specific province, the province of Gauteng, why is it that you feel as if you are the person who is, want to drive the Gauteng province? It was quite a very important, a central kind of appointment. You will also work closely with the chairperson of Gauteng.
Well, without necessarily reducing this to me as a person, but our focus is to ensure that we build a working ANC that can be an ANC that works for the people, an ANC that is out there every day, reliably found whenever there are problems. When there's electricity problems, our ANC branches should be there. When there's problems of poverty, our branches should be there. So that's the ANC that we basically want to focus on building in Gauteng.
Thethani, one thing I should also point out is, of course, the delays that we have seen at this conference. We now know that delegates are officially now voting, and voting is underway, has been underway for at least an hour or so. You are somebody from Sedibeng and have brought those delegates here. When you observe how the conference has taken place, what are your observations as the chairperson of Sedibeng?
Well, things could have been better, but conferences take a life of their own. You plan, there's certain things that are unplanned for, and they happen. You must also adjust and make sure that you keep on pushing and keep on moving. So I guess, yeah, things have happened. Some of the things that happened in a manner that probably the planners of the event, of the conference, could have not foreseen. Yeah. So we are going through those challenges which have basically put a lot of pressure on us, that we have to do a lot of work in basically 2 days. So we hope that we will conclude today and basically do what we came here to do.
We've now seen some of your delegates voting. I understand Joburg has started first. You can correct me. Soon after that, who can we expect, and when is your region most likely to cast their ballot?
Well, we're told that after Joburg it's us, but we are not in charge of that control. But yeah, we are anxiously waiting to go and vote and cast our vote as a region.
Thethani, conference is always about numbers, and of course we know that you are on a certain slate in this conference. When it comes to your numbers, a number of people have said that, especially the delegates, speaking to them, saying that it is a very tightly contested race here in Gauteng. One would say that it is really not clear. It will only be clear once we hear those results being announced a bit later today. How are your numbers looking like for your faction?
Well, we're optimistic that delegates will vote for us. That's why we availed ourselves to contest. Finally, it's the choice of branches, the choice of delegates. It's a process that started with nominations that finally culminates with the actual process of voting. And we're hopeful. We're hopeful. We're hopeful.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Of course, that is Thethani Gunene. He is the chairperson of the Sedibeng region, but also someone vying for that position of provincial secretary, and saying that despite this being a very tightly contested race, they are indeed hopeful, that he will then ascend to that position. But it is something that we'll continue to monitor, because it is quite interesting when you look at those who are on the Panya faction and as well as those who are on the Adiwele group.
Very well. As you say, Mbali, the conference is all about numbers. Let's leave it there for now as we continue to watch those numbers coming out of the ANC Gauteng elective conference in Benoni. Let's turn to